Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video after the latest from the live radar, run for the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as we still do have quite a lot of dry weather around over the coming days, but we're already starting to see the breakdown of the higher pressure, instability returning, and by the end of the week we are going to see a fairly strong westerly flow with big areas of cloud and potentially long spells of rain, especially in those western regions. Real big pattern change coming up by the end of this week into the weekend, with more of an Atlantic theme starting to take over, something we've not seen in 4, 5, 6 weeks, going all the way back almost towards the start of spring. So a real big change coming up, and for most it is going to break this kind of drought that we've seen a number of weeks without substantial rainfall. We're going to see a complete end to that by the end of this week. Temperatures still going to be fairly warm over the coming days, low 20s, where we avoid the thicker cloud and rain, but progressively later on in the week, as that rain and cloud becomes a bit more extensive and widespread, then of course any warmer conditions will become more isolated. Progressively into the longer range, as we'll see from the GFS, GM, Eastern RF and the ensembles, we're still expecting this westerly flow to dominate the end of May and even the start of June, but there are some signs of higher pressure trying to nudge in from the south, especially into early June. Now, the two things that could happen with that is it could turn the south slightly drier, but I think the biggest thing is it could reintroduce slightly warmer and more humid air. Now, that could mean temperatures could be on the rise, especially in the south, but it could also mean it exacerbates precipitation, showers and storms. That's something that, of course, we'll have to wait and see to pinpoint the details, but we'll explore what the overall theme is in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy the videos, make sure you like and subscribe. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see once again it's a fairly dry day, but we are starting to see a little bit of activity, a bit of instability starting to nudge in as the high pressure slowly loses its grip. You can see a few odd thunderstorms breaking out this afternoon across parts of the Republic of Ireland, towards the Irish Sea, up towards the Lake District and parts of Wales. Again, nothing too crazy, very isolated, but just shows you that that energy is starting to come back to the atmosphere. You can see, if we look at the 2 meter temperature, scoring this around 6 p.m, that most areas are fairly warm today. Lots of oranges around, indicating temperatures in and around the 20-degree range. You can see a few notable spots where it's colder. Northeast England and eastern Scotland. Still got a bit of an easterly breeze here, keeping those temperatures down. That easterly breeze has subsided further southwards though, so warmer towards those eastern coasts. And of course, those areas where we've got those showers and storms breaking out are of course a little bit cooler as well. You see much of mainland Europe is very warm at the moment, or at least western mainland Europe, of course closer to the centre of the high and warmer air masses. Unfortunately, that is going to depart, especially for the UK in the coming days. Now, if we come over to the latest UKV, we can see those heavy thundery showers still around through this afternoon and evening, slowly though dissipating away. Progressively into Tuesday, a bit more in the way of cloud during the morning, but hopefully that will burn away before a few heavy thundery showers once again will break out in the west during Tuesday lunchtime and progressively become a bit more widespread during the early part of the afternoon. Mainly for Wales, southwest England and Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland. Those are the key areas where these showers will be quite widespread. There could be further areas of rain potentially into Wednesday morning during this for southern areas, where that area of instability that caused those thunderstorms could produce a little bit more in the way of persistent rain. But this is not the big change yet. This is just a bit of an instability creeping in there under the higher pressure. The real change, though, comes later on in the week. A few hefty showers once again, potentially through Wednesday. Those clear before eventually Wednesday evening, and much of Thursday is still pleasant. So yes, a bit of instability during the middle of the week. For the next 48 hours could be a few heavy showers, thunderstorms, even a few bits of longer spells of rain there in the far south. But Thursday, not too bad. But look what happens into Friday and into Saturday. Walls of cloud and heavier rain starts to drift in from the west, and you can see lots more in the way of thick cloud, persistent rain, and that sort of drizzly, lighter rain pushing in, pretty symbolic of an Atlantic regime. So nothing ridiculous by the weekend, but definitely a lot more unsettled and a lot more unpleasant as we progress into the final week of May. Now, if you look at the max temperature, you can see this afternoon widely around the high teens or just about touching 20 degrees. So nothing crazy today, average or even slightly below average, but still pleasant in the sunshine. During Tuesday, still 20 to maybe even 24 in the south where it's sunny and warm, but where we have those showers, of course, it will be a bit cooler. Into Wednesday, it's a similar story in the far south with that cloud and rain, mainly only mid to low teens. Elsewhere, again, potentially up towards 20 degrees. And Thursday looks like our final kind of pleasant day. Yes, temperatures don't actually look particularly great here as cooler air starts to move in, but still sunny with potential for 20 degrees in a few spots. And then into Friday, still 20 or 21, but the cloud and the rain is building in. And you see as we head into Saturday, really only warm in the far east. Elsewhere, mid-teens, but it's not a warm mid-teens. 16, 17 degrees with sunshine can feel really nice. 16, 17 degrees with cloud and on and off rain does not feel quite as nice. So I think we're going to be for that sort of second option. Yes, still potentially mild temperatures, but with the cloud and rain, it's going to feel much colder there as we head into the final weekend of, or final full weekend of spring. Now, to progress and have a look at the longer range, you can see a bit of instability around over the next 48 hours, and that's why we see the showers and storms. You can see those lighter yellows, that's just an upper trough developing. That's why we're not seeing, huge amounts of rainfall, but it could be potent in a few spots. However, the high pressure does topple back in for a time later on this week for about a day or two, but then eventually look at the weekend. That northwesterly wind is unlocked, lower pressure moving in, and that just persists the whole of the final week of May. There is the risk of some higher pressure trying to nudge back in, but of course it's not going to be dominant. Low pressure still looks like it's going to be in control there for early June, but it could encourage warmer air masses to head our way. And if that did occur, not only could the temperatures improve, but also it could exacerbate the precipitation or even produce some more thunderstorms. So we'll have to wait and see, but definitely GFS all on board with this return to westerly flow, not really going anywhere there for the final week of May and early June. Now, if we compare to the latest GM, broadly very similar. Low pressure breaking through as we head into next week and really dominating much of next week. You can see some quite deep lows move through at times. Again, mainly impacting the north and the west, but nonetheless still pretty abysmal in quite a few spots. And finally, if we compare to the latest ECM, though, the midnight run, once again, high pressure moving away, and by the end of the week, some really unpleasant low pressure systems, especially for Scotland there. Looks pretty deep, with tight isobars, meaning not only heavy rain, cloud and cooler temperatures, but also potentially for some stronger winds. And that just continues, and we do see the threat of high pressure nudging in from the south by the end of this run. But as I said, it's not dominating, still got low pressure involved. It just pushes slightly warmer air our way, and if that did occur, then there is the risk of further showers, further storms, and a bit more energy within the atmosphere. Now, to finish, if we look at the latest ensemble, see the latest GFS will quickly refresh, as I know this is just about coming out. Generally, over the next couple of weeks, we are average to below average. When I say below average, a couple of degrees at most, so might not even notice it being below average. Precipitation, though, moderate. And of course, this is London, probably not one of the epicentres for the heavy rain over the next couple of weeks. Going to be furthest away from the approaching Atlantic weather fronts, so do expect a lot more in the west and in the north, because even here in the south and the east, furthest from those low pressure systems, still going to see a lot more in the way of precipitation. You see why it's occurring. Look at this, sea level pressure still high the next 24 hours, but slowly dropping and then being fairly low there as we progress into the latter part of May. Again, not ridiculous like a winter storms or anything, not down towards sort of those 970s, 980s or even 990s, but down towards 1,000 to 1,010 millibars. That's the sort of area that is reasonably low pressure for the time of year. 2 meter temperatures, they're not going to be dropping massively over the next couple of weeks. As we saw from the upper air temperatures, they are going to be fairly stationary around average or below average. I don't expect a massive shift in the actual temperatures, but the differences with cloud and rain, the feel-like temperature will be a few degrees colder. Today it's 17, 18 degrees, but probably feels like 20. Might be 17, 18 degrees next week, but it'll feel like 13 or 14 because of the cloud, the rain, and potentially the wind. And if we finish by looking at the latest ECMWF ensembles, the midnight run, very, very similar. Upper air temperatures hovering around average or below average, pretty high precipitation, no real difference to the GFS ensemble members there. So very strong model consensus there that we are turning pretty unsettled and reasonably cooler spell as we do progress towards the end of spring and of course the start of summer. So it doesn't look like summer is going to start on a particularly summery note, but to be honest, we've had a good share of warm and dry conditions over the past month or so. So it was bound to come back with this rain, but yeah, hopefully we do see at least some drier patches in there over the next few weeks. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.